picking it up. Unless you want me to stand next to her.
Otago Settlers Association. Just a couple of wee messages to begin with. One is to remind you of our Christmas function, which is on Thursday the 8th of December at 7 o'clock. Everything will be open from 6:30. You go see Pixie Town, go shopping. You have to RSVP to Jude, who's at the back, by the 2nd of December. We also will have a raffle, and we're looking for contributions to the raffle. So if you've got any contributions, please bring them and give them to Jude. Or can they leave them at the reception? Excellent. Now the other one is our summer outing, which didn't happen the last couple of years, but it's going to happen this year. It's on Friday the 24th of February, and Russell is one of the organisers of it, and so is Pete. We're going to the Vanished World Centre in Duntrood, and then we're going to follow some of the Vanished World Trail for the fossils. And I've done that before, and it's absolutely fabulous. Further details are going to follow, but if you're not on email, contact Jude, and she'll make sure you're in the loop. So that's the two messages about upcoming events. And then if you haven't got a current membership card, please contact Jude and get a current membership card, and then you can use it for your discount. Now, today I'm going to welcome our speaker, and I have decided that the easiest way is to read it off the email. So today we've got Pete Reed, who's a curator here at Toitū, and he's going to give us an update on the exhibition team's plan to refresh the transport and technology galleries. It's actually 10 years since those galleries were done, and it's amazing, isn't it, to think it was that long. So it's the biggest refreshment of the galleries that they've had. The transport and technology galleries will be closed for some time as the team sets to bring about some new exhibitions. So it'd be great to hear what's going on. Thank you, Pete.
Great. Turn that on. Oh, kia koutou, no mai haere mai. Lovely to see you all. As you know, we've called this wee presentation Gaining Traction, and for reasons that will hopefully become apparent shortly. You may have worked it out already though. And here's a subtitle to give you another hint about what we're talking about. But first of all, we're going to take you back in time. You're feeling very sleepy. Whenever I say the words Tiger Tea bus, you're going to jump out of your seat and squawk like a chicken. Oh no, just kidding. Don't do that, unless you feel you really have to. So we're going back to November 2019. And here at the museum, we've come to the end of a 12-month project to sort out some behind-the-scenes issues. And we've launched the Brought to Light exhibition to show you all what we've been up to. And now we're starting to think about what we're going to do next. So our attention turns to the permanent display galleries, because many of the exhibits there will be 10 years old in next month. It's hard to believe, as we've said, that we've been open as Toitū for 10 years now, but it's true. So we were asked to look at what changes we'd like to make in the galleries to freshen them up, take into account what hasn't worked so well as we'd hoped, what we can make better, and what objects and stories got left out last time that we'd like to put in now, those sort of issues. So there's the building, and of course then along came COVID. And all those plans had to go on the back burner for a little while. When the dust had finally settled, not that there should be any dust in the museum, and Josephine has just had a decent clean for its big birthday, but when the dust had settled, we decided that our gold display should be first up for a refresh. Now the reason we wanted to make some changes there was because we felt some aspects of the story of the gold rushes were a little bit underdone the first time round. And that was partly due to space constraint. You know, the coach and horses are great, but they take up a lot of real estate. And so the reason we tackled this area first was because it was reasonably low-hanging fruit, some of the easiest changes to make. So we reclaimed some floor space in the corner where we could put some new Gold Rush objects and stories out. And then we went out to produce some video content, starring Sean. And so that content was for a new interactive information station and to go on our YouTube channel. So you can see some of those clips either in the galleries or on the YouTube channel. We find this is a great way of storytelling without being constrained to having to weave a story around specific objects when you've only got a label of 70 words or less to tell that story. So once that was done, we turned our attention to the biggest area of the museum that we wanted to refresh, the garage, where we've got our transport and our computers. Now, it's a hugely popular gallery, home to some real icons of the museum, such as the Tiger Tea bus. I think I'm going to have to ditch hypnotism as a backup career. Obviously didn't work. So the garage displays have served us really well for these 10 years, but we think there's still some untapped potential here to make them even better. And so that's what we've moved on to. So here's the current floor plan. And one of the comments we occasionally get about this gallery is that people think more vehicles could be squeezed in here, like they do in traditional transport museums, such as Transport World. And although we don't want to see vehicles cheek by jowl like this, no disrespect to Transport World, which is a great museum, we are planning to put a few extra vehicles on display, and we've identified a couple of underutilised areas of the garage where we can do that. So one of those areas is here, the NZR Lounge, or as we informally call it, the Bullnose. You may be aware that this space was originally designed to be the museum cafe. And that's why we have a big glass window in front of the computers and a small gap between the space and the exhibits to try and separate the two areas out. So when the cafe didn't go in here, it made this kind of an orphaned space. And so when you arrive at this end of the museum, instead of coming to a lively, vibrant cafe, you arrive at this quiet, dead space. So we're going to take the opportunity to invigorate the space. And then at the other end of the gallery, we've got another underutilised space. And again, this was deliberate, a deliberate design so we could preserve access through the doors. But in reality, access through the doors hardly ever been required. So we're going to reclaim this space. So here's the old floor plan again. And here's the new one. So computers are moving to this end over here. It's a bit of a homecoming for them because it's where they used to be stored back in the good old days. And so this area will become something like this. And the garage doors will be open and this picture window installed, which will give you a bit of a teaser of what you're going to see next as you're coming through the 20th century gallery and provide a bit more connection between the two spaces. And then at the other end, we're going to have a lively, kid-friendly area starring the Tiger Tea bus. So that moves into the bullnose, and more on that in a minute. Now, another area of the existing display that I was keen to fix is this bit. So the Otago Motor Club story is one of the key stories in the gallery, but it's hidden behind this wall. So it really deserves a higher profile, especially given that the Otago Motor Club Trust was a platinum sponsor of the museum redevelopment. And it just so happens that around the time we were thinking about making changes in the gallery, the Motor Club Trust came to us and said they'd like to place their number 2 patrol car alongside the number 1 patrol car. So naturally that's easier said than done, but the Trust hinted that they might be able to come to the party with some money to help us with it. And so our designer Tim created these amazing visuals of what the gallery could look like. And we presented them to the Motor Club Trust, and the Trust were impressed enough to give us a very generous grant. And we're extremely grateful for that, because without them, a lot of this refresh probably wouldn't be happening. Now, we were also approached by the Dunedin Fire Brigade Restoration Society about helping them celebrate their anniversary by putting this fire engine on display in the gallery. And so we did that, and we're planning to keep the Dennis as a feature of the refresh. And it'll also move down to the bullnose. Then we got offered this police highway patrol car, which will go into the bullnose as well. And that's going to be a great addition to our history of road safety theme that we have down in the gallery. And so the ever popular monkey tail video and play safe videos and the traffic trainer pedal car get slotted into this wall of bikes and trikes and scooters. So there's the road safety element there. And you'll see that this wall includes some recently collected items as well. So we've got some 21st century items as well, like the Lime scooter, which isn't actually supposed to be lime coloured, because of course they were orange. And an e-bike right down the end there. Now, talking about bikes, as well as putting some new items on display, we went looking for stories and objects that are elsewhere in the museum that might be better relocated down to the garage. And so one of those stories and objects is the story of cycling, which is on display in our First Great City display. And as you can see, it takes up quite a bit of room, and perhaps even overpowers the other Victorian Dunedin displays. And meanwhile, the interactive penny farthing looks a bit lonely down there. So we're going to take the cycling story out of First Great City and put it back alongside the penny farthing. Likewise, we've got this buggy also taking up quite a bit of real estate in First Great City, and so we've decided to reclaim this area as well. And so the buggy will disappear from here and reappear down in the garage. Now, we also needed to consider vehicles in the museum's collection that aren't on display. There's one or two that are in storage. And we've got a great collection of vehicles, so it sort of behooves us to use as much of it as we can. And so some of you may recognise this brome that used to be on display before redevelopment. So that's coming back out, and it will go here along with the buggy in the middle of the garage in a much more open layout. Then there's this Holden, which we had in the Brought to Light exhibition. And now that it's all cleaned up for the Brought to Light exhibition, looks so good, it would be a shame just to poke it away in storage again. So we've had to make some space for that. Another thing that we've decided to do is to go large with moving image to try and make the gallery a bit more dynamic. So at the entrance to the gallery, we've designed this rotating wheels projection that'll be projected onto the floor. And so the wheels will go around. Lots of different types of wheels, not just a car tyre. And then we'll use historic footage of motor racing and rallies and so on, and revolving slideshows projected up onto the walls. So won't only create movement, but also allow us to tell some important transport stories that are currently missing in the displays a little bit, such as the story of the famous Brighton Rally. And these projections and slideshows will also be used to create connections with the outside world. So this one will give a glimpse of what the street on the other side of the door looked like in days gone by. Now, while we were doing the research for this, I came across some really cool footage of traffic out here in Lower High Street. It's on the DCC Archives Flickr feed. So I decided I just had to get my hands on this footage and use it in the gallery. So we're just going to stop for a second and I'm going to show you some of that footage. So you remember these days? Remember what it was like? You'll see somebody just about get run over in a sec. See this guy here winding his way through the traffic. Yeah, no giving way to the bus. You just have to go around it. I'm glad to see you enjoy that as much as I did. So that. Right, so that's what traffic was like out there in the days before the one-way system was put in, of course. And so, again, that may bring back some memories for some of you. But for me, I was only 6 days old when this came into force. Okay, just looking at the clock before time gets away on us completely, because time does fly. We'd better get to talking about what you've all been waiting for, the traction engine. So as many of you know, the museum has its own traction engine, this one here. Not quite as old as Josephine, but it will be celebrating a birthday ending in 0 next year. It'll be turning 120. I think we're going to have to find a more suitable name for it though, because singing "Happy Birthday, Dear Burrell Traction Engine number 2632" just doesn't work. So for now, I'm going to call it Nigel, because I went to school with a guy called Nigel Burrell, as in Burrell Traction Engine. So this isn't Nigel, but Nigel's story begins in 1903 when he was purchased new by Martin Ryan, or Ryan Brothers of Waitahuna. And they used it in South Otago for doing tasks traditionally done by traction engines, powering threshing, chaff cutting and flax milling machines, hauling heavy loads like you can see here, those sorts of things. In December 1904, Nigel was involved in an accident when a bridge at Waitahuna collapsed under its weight. And that wasn't unusual. It happened to traction engines quite frequently. But this picture did make the newspapers at the time. So then Martin Ryan sold his traction engines in 1926, and Nigel instead became owned by Jim Shaw up at Arrowtown. And then later it was owned by Charlie Hanson, also of Arrowtown, and then by threshing contractor Jim Dennison at Lake Hayes. And then when Jim bought a new tractor in 1949, Nigel went into retirement. Although it was later bought out of retirement for a bit when Nolan Brothers wanted to use it at their sawmill near the Arrow River. Then Jim Dennison died in 1973, and in 1984 his family put Nigel up for sale. So the museum, with the assistance of John Orr and family, bought it. They paid $22,000 for it. And as you can see, it was popped on the back of a truck and brought to Farrer Engineering to be restored. And eventually became housed at the Gasworks Museum, where it was maintained and made available for events. We even ran it in Santa parades in 2009 and 2010. So there it is in one of the Santa parades. But around a decade ago, Nigel became disused after cracking its boiler. And sitting idle at the gasworks hasn't really done Nigel any favours. And so I decided if we weren't going to restore him to working order anytime soon, we should at least make him a little bit more comfortable, like we did for Josephine 50 odd years ago, when Josephine was given a spruce up and brought indoors. So we've started consulting with Farrer Engineering again, and a specialist traction engine restorer to hopefully make that happen. And I'm hoping that Nigel will become a Toitū icon in the same way Josephine and the Tiger T bus squawk have become. Time will tell. And speaking of time, I guess you want to know when all this is going to happen. So we're closing the NZR garage on the 7th of February next year. And all going well, we'll reopen 5 months later on the 1st of July. We had actually hoped to have all of this done this year, but unfortunately, contractor availability, difficulties with securing materials, we all know what that's been like in recent times in the post-COVID environment. It's meant that we've had to push the whole plan out into next year. All right, so when I click my fingers, you'll all be wide awake again and no longer want to squawk like a chicken whenever I say Tiger T bus. Why?
You squawk like a chicken for the time.
Oh, because I just thought with my rotating clock I'd be able to hypnotise you, just for a bit of fun. So, any questions?
Yes. How are you going to cope with bringing attractions in and out of your closed all the entrances?
Well, we have that door out into the street where we're going to put that projection over. So that's our main way in and out of the gallery. And that's been one of the problems with using the bullnose too, because there's only a tiny narrow entranceway into the bullnose area. So we haven't been able to put vehicles in there until now, but seeing as we're moving the computers, that'll open out a lot more and we'll be able to move things around a bit easier.
For the likes of the traction engine, is it going to be available for kids to play on and the bikes? And will there be any sort of interactive?
Yeah, well, we do have the interactive penny farthing there, so that's staying. The Tiger Tea bus, of course, is interactive, and the fire engine that's come from the Fire Brigade Restoration Society. The plan, if we can, is to try and make the police car a little bit interactive too. No sirens, we're not allowed to do that. We're under strict instructions from the police that we're not allowed to use it to impersonate police officers because that's a crime. Yeah, but not the traction engine. It's a little bit difficult. It would be a little bit dangerous to try and get on and off. Yep.
We've been in here a few times. The computer section always seems to be a dead spot for me. Have you monitored how much interest there is in that and retaining that?
We don't actually have the facility for getting down to the level of individual exhibits to assess how many people are going into that area. We can only do the gallery as a whole at the moment. So other than talking to people and finding out how popular it is and getting feedback from the visitor hosts about what they're seeing down there, that's about all the data that we have to work with. And we're finding that area is especially popular with children because of the Laser Hawk interactive that's down there. And with the Laser Hawk interactive, when we shift it, we're also going to go large with that. So you'll be able to play it, and it'll be playing up on a big screen on the wall at the same time. So we're getting all that movement going on in the gallery there.
Will your rotating wall be the wheels be a problem for people that have visual disturbances or, migraines or epilepsy? Because I just thought you're spinning all these different wheels fast on the floor.
I don't think they'll be going particularly fast, and we can set the speed. And we do have other projections on the floor now. So we've got the water projection as you first go into the museum. We're actually looking at doing another one in the garage as well. We're looking at doing fire around the fire engine. So you'll have water at the entry and fire at the exit. Well, as I said, I thought that I might have hypnotised you with the rotating.
No, but every time you mention the Tiger Tea bus, you squawked afterwards. Because it was a tiger. Okay, I wasn't here in that time. So.
Okay. Yep.
Yes, Peter, I have a question. When the road services bus was purchased by the Settlers Association and converted into a museum space, the sawtooth roof was replaced with museum quality glazing. In the passage of time, it's been blocked out. So my question is whether you're going to put it back to what was always intended to in the original concept of allow natural light to flow into the space.
Yeah, so that's not a curatorial thing, so that's more of a question for the management team. But my understanding is that conservation assessment has shown that light levels are still way too high in that area, and that's why it's all been returned to traditional blacked out museum. Which is a bit of a shame because we do want to keep some connection to the outside with windows, but it's just not possible everywhere. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's going to be part of one of the projections down in the gallery, yeah. Yeah, quite probably. I mean, that's why the one way was put in to try and reduce the number of accidents and create better traffic flow. No. No. All right then. So that's sometime before 1968, obviously, probably early 60s.
What are you going to do to provide additional interest to people while so much is being taken away from the museum?
Well, we do have the rest of the museum to play with, and our great public programs people, Chris and Mary, will be devising lots of programs in the meantime. Well, we don't have a temporary exhibition at the moment, and the temporary exhibition program is suspended while we work on the refresh. So.
Well, Peter, Russell Wall is my name. I'm a new member on the committee. Thank you very much for this exciting project you've got on board there. One of the things that I recall as a kid who used to come into the railway workshop or into the railway yard station and thinking, oh, that's an interesting sort of place, and no doubt possibly an option you may be considering too is, well, why not use part of the operation of the railways when they were there? Like underneath, you'll still have all the shall we say the pits and those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing that eventually may be considered. I recall also seeing Josephine, and I remember seeing a photo of Josephine when she was last used by the Ministry of Works, up putting the railways into the West Otago. So that's an exciting little thing that I think you've got information on that. But thank you very much, Peter. We're looking forward to the sorts of things that you are able to do, and we will be supporting you right up there. Thank you.
Great, thank you.